Miss Blake. All right, let's move on. On our last program, and we did miss the last, actually about a month, right?
Yeah.
About a month, a couple of times of not being here because of various reasons, and I don't think I gotta tell y'all, but people have issues sometime and they come up. 1 week it was me, 1 week it was Catherine, so it was what it was, it is. But we back, thank God.
Amen.
Amen. Okay, on our last program, we told our story about Colin
Kapernick.
Kapernick, because I was pronouncing it wrong. Anyway, who said he could not be silent anymore while he was taking a stance against racism by kneeling and not standing up for the United States national anthem. You know what? I ain't hearing no more about that.
Oh, it's still going on.
Is it?
Yeah.
I'm not hearing. Okay, so it's out of the news right now.
Maybe, yeah, maybe.
Not the financial news. It's the NFL's viewership is really significantly off now. So a lot of people are just not watching games. So that's what it is. I mean,
really?
It's
And they have games all the time?
They have games all the time, but the viewership is diminished quite heavily. I mean, a lot of people are protesting by protesting, not watching. So.
Well, cool. So it's still going on. Thank you. Okay. For not standing up for the United States national anthem at his football games, which today, as John has said, is spreading throughout the country, and people are not watching games anymore like they used to because they're in support of this also. So today we're going to start off with Miss B telling our story about the young Texas football team who took a stance and was suspended, and the reading of the stanzas, or the words of the actual Star Spangled Banner, also known as our national anthem, and why during the time it was written by Francis Scott Key, it did not include Black Americans. Also, on our last program, as she was telling our story, she mentioned the Colonial Marines, and as I told her, I had never heard of them. So today, I'm going to conclude our story with the corpse. It's called Corpse of the Colonial Marines unit that was raised from former slaves. But before we move any further, I'd like to take a minute to remember Gwendolyn Ifield. She was an award-winning journalist, and y'all might have seen her on PBS. She was on PBS. I thought she was also on another one too, MSN. Anyway, take a moment just to remember her. She joined her ancestors about 2 weeks ago. So just a moment. And pray for her family, because anytime there's death in the family, I know she's a mother, she's a sister, she's a daughter, she's an aunt. Anytime there's death in the family, that family needs to be strengthened. So keep her family in prayer.
Amen.
All right, let's move on, Miss B. You got it.
Okay. After taking a knee, young boys saw their football coach suspended, then their whole season canceled. These were 11 and 12-year-old boys of the Beaumont Bulls football team in Beaumont, Texas. They were situated between Houston, to the west of Lafayette, Louisiana, to the east of Beaumont, is one of the many Texas towns which lives and breathes footballs. And many families in Beaumont have now been playing the game for generations. It's just what they do. But, I got my papers all wrong. Okay,
You just do a part of the story anyway, right?
Yeah. So on September 10th, after getting permission from the league officials, the staff and the students of the Beaumont Bulls football team took a knee before their game. They won 27-0 and garnered a national attention for their demonstration. Within 24 hours, the kids and their families began receiving death threats
Wow.
and
Why would they
racist
receive
taunts
death threats?
because they took a knee,
Because they took a stand.
both online and off. The executive board of the team and the league issued strong statements of support backing the boys, but within a few days, it was all eroded.
Wow.
Yeah,
So how did that turn out? Do you know?
yeah, right here. The boys, well, the coach, the coach was suspended. The boys were told that they have done well, and you were right to take a knee for injustice. You were right to follow the lead of so many NFL players. You were right to keep doing it even when they told you not to. You did not create this mess. It's not your fault. And I am incredibly proud of each and every one of you. And that was from their coach. And their coach, Coach Barber, and the dean, they apologize to the boys and to the students, especially since their whole season was canceled because of that.
They're playing again, or
No, they're done.
They done for the season.
The season just started.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, season just
They
started
are being punished because they taken a stand
because they
against
took a knee. Yeah,
injustice.
injustice. Yes.
That's sad. That's truly sad.
Well,
I mean, I don't, we didn't cause a lot of these things that's going on today. This has to do with our story. And because of what happened from the beginning in the 1800s or 1600s when the Africans were brought here to America. And then I got a story that I'm going to tell about they were here before anybody was here, even before the Native Americans, before the English, the Brits, or whatever, any other people. It was the Africans that were here first. But anyway, a lot of things that our children are facing today are things that happen, and it's being perpetrated and keep going on and on. And I think a lot of it has to do with television, the media, because they keep it going on. It's like propaganda, when Hitler dropped all those flyers from the sky in Germany, and the Germans picked them up and they said hate the Jews or whatever, and they start hating the Jews, and then it was able to kill them. Well, it's the same thing that's going on with this happening on television, the media. It's propaganda. Because as human beings, we all know that it's about human rights. And, you let me, like I say, visit my castle, my home, what is it? Your castle, my castle.
Yep.
My home, your home.
Mi casa, su casa.
Thank
Yeah.
you. And get to know about one another, and all this other mess would drop down. It has to go away at some point in time. Because it's not only our children involved in this, it's also their children, Hispanic children, Japanese children. All the ethnic groups are involved in this. So all of us need to come together, us older ones, come together and make it better for this new generation that's coming up.
And these are young boys, 11 and 12 years old.
And getting scarred, they're getting scarred. They're getting scarred emotionally because they were suspended for the season. I mean, God, they could did a couple of months or something. They did it for the whole year. That's not fair. That's just not fair. Just because they took a stance. But anyway, we can talk a while about that. Let's just move forward on with this program and talk about you was going to do the third stanza.
Yeah, I wanted to read the stanza. This stanza, it says, their blood.
And this is Francis Scott Key, who wrote this during this time, and he had slaves, didn't he?
Yes, and a lot of people don't know the entire song, and they only sing the first stanza instead of all of it.
And even if they did, some of it, I think they wouldn't even understand it. I really do.
Well, if they had understood it Well, you know, this is really a controversy because the first stanza does give you that feeling of
Our country,
yes,
'tis of thee.
yeah. But when
sweet
you get
land
into
of
it,
liberty. But it was only for them. It was only for whites. It was not written for no one else but them. She's gonna read the third stanza. Maybe
well, just part of it.
part of
Yeah.
it. Okay.
The part that is so devastating, where it says, "Their blood has washed out their foul footsteps' pollution. No refuge could save the hireling and slave from the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave." They were talking about murder. They were upset. Francis Scott Key was upset with how many African Americans decided to have the audacity to fight with the British for their freedom.
Their freedom. There we go. See, back in history. There it goes. It starts. It's been going on for so many centuries now.
And he was so upset. He wanted to put that in there, especially because of those colonial troops. Because the colonial troops showed what African Americans could do, or black people could do, with they needed their freedom. They wanted their freedom, and they were going to do any and everything they could to obtain it.
By any means.
Any means necessary.
I got a picture of the Colonial Marines up, so too, along with the Francis Scott Key. So in case you're
Okay.
wondering.
Okay, and I'm gonna tell the story about them in just a moment.
And that is what upset him so much, is because they were very good. They were very devastating. They did the job
And he was a racist,
all the way live.
you know, and he owned slaves himself. So we just gonna go on and just want to let you know. See, like she said, they only know that first stanza, that first part of that national anthem. If you read the whole thing, then you'll see we're in there. Okay, would you read that once again? That stanza just one more time.
It says,
That's the last stanza, right? The third one.
it's the third. It's part of the third.
Okay.
Their blood has washed out their foul footsteps' pollution. No refuge could save the hireling and slave from the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave.
They was on them.
Yeah, they was talking about murder,
They was on about killing them.
but they were the ones that was getting harmed.
Lord.
They were winning that battle of freedom, even though it didn't come about that way, but they were whooping tail. They was doing it.
For him to put that in there,
Yeah.
like, it's just open murder, you know. It's just Jesus. Okay, let's go get it on with this other part of our story about the corpse of the Colonial Marines, who she's talking about, and who he's talking about, right? Yes. Okay, the corpse of the corpse, C-O-R-P-S. I'm not saying the corpse, like, you know, dead.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Corps. Like the Marine Corps.
Yeah, but it says corpse, C-O-R-P-S.
Yeah, that's what they said, Corps.
Core, that's core, yeah.
Core.
It's weird about French and other
Yeah.
languages. You don't pronounce certain parts of it, like, yeah. I mean, we got a lot of words in English like that, like knife, for example. I mean,
Yeah.
you say knife? No.
No.
But it's like it's
Tsunami.
yeah. Where's the
Say
T?
the T.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's actually trying to approximate a Japanese sound. That's the reason why. Tsunami, I think, means that means a harbor wave.
Means big water.
That means harbor wave. Harbor wave. Harbor wave.
Yeah, okay. All right, the corpse of the Colonial Marines. And we also, John, put up this guy's picture, Alexander Cochran, along with that picture of the Colonial Marines.
He's the one that formed them.
The corpse of the Colonial Marines were two Marine units raised from former slaves for service in the Americas by the British at the behest of Alexander Cochran. The units were created at 2 different times and were later disbanded once the military threat had disappeared. The 1st Corps was a small unit that served in the Caribbean from 1808 to October 12, 1810. Recruited from former slaves. Slaves was everywhere.
Everywhere.
Jesus. Whew, everywhere. Recruited from former slaves to address the shortage of military manpower in the Caribbean. Did I say that right? Caribbean. The locally recruited men were less susceptible to tropical illness than were troops sent from Britain. I told you my tongue still can't say, and I'm talking about my grandson. He has a speech impediment. He can't say the letter S. Well, neither can I say some letters. I don't know if his tongue is twisted or too short or what, but I don't know. Mine, I call it, I have a thick tongue. Just leave it alone. Okay, the locally recruited men were less susceptible.
Susceptible.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. To tropical illness than troops sent from Britain. The Marines followed the practice of the British Army West India. The second, more substantial Marine Corps served from May 1814 until 20 August 1816. The greater part of the Marines was stationed on the Atlantic coast, with a smaller body occupying a fort on the Gulf Coast in Florida. Recruits were accepted from among escaped slaves who had already gained their freedom on coming into British hands and who were unwilling to join West Indian regiments. The establishments of the force sparked controversy at the time, of course. I'm sure it did. The army of former slaves gave them some guns, representing a psychological threat to the slave-owning society of the Americas. As a consequence, the 2 senior officers of the Marines in Florida, George Woodbine and Edward Nichols, were demonized in Niles' register for their association with the Marines and inducing slave revolts.
You know, I was just thinking of a phrase that has been said, and sometimes we understand it and sometimes we don't. The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Because you actually combine forces. You go against
right.
Yep.
And that's what they did. The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Just like years ago when the British were here, the French were here, they actually had Native American tribes that were actually aligned with them. So the French would have, like, say, a bunch of other Indian tribes would fight the tribes that they would fight against each other.
Right.
Because they already had ancestral animosity or something against each other. They had, like the Aztecs and everybody else, when the Spanish came to Mexico, what we call Mexico, or that region of the world, there's already Indian tribes there, native tribes there, that were willing to go against the Aztecs or the Incas or whatever because they had issues with them. So
right.
I mean, old animosities, old belligerences didn't fade. They just, and when somebody came on board who was actually aiming for the same thing, they joined forces.
They joined forces. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. That's the thing about this that's happening right now today, is that the world is looking. And never think that just because we are here that we don't have no help from around the world. There will be, social media is a strong...
It sure is.
A strong tool. I seen them pull people from all around the world. What is that? Black Lives Matter. Went on social media and pulled people from around the world and told them to be here in Ferguson. And they came.
Yes.
So, social media is out there, and never think that we are alone. We're not alone in this here. Even though I know, our story tell you that the Africans did not fight for us or don't really deal with it, don't want to claim us or anything, but that's all right. That's all right, because we still going forward, and they want us to come back. Bottom line, they want us to come back to Africa. to help them out, you know. So anyway, let's move forward because our time is getting short. Let me get to him. The first let me get to Cochrane. Alexander Cochrane named the ex-slaves the Corps of Colonial Marines, which was enlarged with fugitive slaves from Guadalupe. This is the first corps, and that's the one that they had over in, I maybe need to read this from the beginning. Rear Admiral Sir Alexander Cochrane raised the first corps of Colonial Marines in 1808 while Commander-in-Chief of the British Naval Forces on the Leeward Islands stationed during the Napoleonic Wars.
Napoleonic Wars, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Somebody can speak for me. Some of these words, okay. And then some days, my mom, I could just pop them right off. The British had captured the island of Marie Galante earlier that year, but the French governor of Guadalupe attacked the island on hearing that illness had weakened the British garrison. Marie Galante's slaves assisted the British when promised that they would not be returned to their owners.
Wow.
By this means, the island was preserved under British control until the arrival of the 3 companies of the 1st West India Regiment. Cochrane named the ex-slaves the Corps of Colonial Marines, which was enlarged with fugitive slaves from Guadalupe. The corps was paid from Marie Galante's revenues, clothed from Royal Navy stores, and commanded by Royal Marine officers. After the repossession of Guadalupe, Cochrane maintained the corps, and on October 12, 1810, redistributed the men, 70 among the ships of the squadron, 20 to 30 to the battery at the Saintes, a group of small islands south of Guadalupe, and 50 remaining in the Marine Galante garrison. They saw no further action as a distinct body, but were listed in ships' musters among supernumeraries for wages and victuals, food, under the description Colonial Marine until mid-1850. Now let me get to where he came to America. Recruitment and Atlantic Coast Service. And I'm not going to read it all because it's kind of long. On May 10th, Tangier Island off of Virginia coast had been occupied by the British and offered an accessible location for those seeking refuge. Male refugees were given the option to become blue jackets, take up arms, or to join the working party constructing Fort Albion and its infrastructure. The Marine was embodied on May 18, 1814 and made its combat debut in the raid on Pontego Creek on May 30th, 1814, where in a skirmish known as the Battle of Rumley's Gut, it helped capture an American artillery battery. James Ross, captain of the HMS Albion, later described their involvement as the most excellent specimen of what they are likely to be. Their conduct was marked by great spirit and vivacity, and perfect obedience. One soldier named Michael Harding was killed earlier in the battle, but it did not daunt or check the others, but on the contrary, animated them to seek revenge. Cochrane's initial impressions were positive. He observed that the new recruits were getting on astonishingly and were really fine fellows. After this, the Corps participated in the Chesapeake campaign and subsequent correspondence. Cockburn wrote that the recruits had behaved unexpectedly well in several engagements and had not committed any improper outages. Outrageous, I'm sorry.
No, they weren't. They were, the prize was freedom.
Amen. Let me see. Go down, and I'm going down a little further. If you want to read this, all you got to do is type in Corps of Colonial Marine and get more information about them. On September 3rd, 1814, 3 companies of the Colonial Marines joined with 3 remaining companies of Royal Marines to form the 3rd Battalion, Royal and Colonial Marines. Later that month, all 3 companies fought at the Battle of North Point in Maryland. A 4th company was created in December 1814, and further recruitment was begun along the Georgia coast during the first quarter of 1815. The number of enlisted allowed 2 more companies to be raised, with sergeants taken from companies recruited in Chesapeake. This is old stuff, but it's very important. Although the Corps suffered some combat losses during its Chesapeake campaign actions in 1814, its greatest loss arose from disease due to poor conditions on Tangier Island. An outbreak of dysentery in the winter of 1814 killed a surgeon and 69 men from the battalion.
Wow.
The Corps' last tour during the War of 1812 was in Georgia from December to March 1815. Admiral George Cockburn seized the southern U.S. coast to disrupt trade, communication, and transportation of troops to the Gulf of Mexico, where Admiral Cochrane's forces planned to take the southwest territories of the U.S. Part of the Corps joined the successful British attack on Fort Point Peter. The Corps occupied Camden County and Cumberland Island, aiding the immigration of an estimate of 1,485 slaves from southeast Georgia.
Wow.
They was running, wasn't they? Okay. The war ended in 1815 and 3 European companies of the 3rd Battalion, Royal and Colonial Marines were sent back to Britain. With their departure, the battalion was formed as the 3rd Battalion Colonial Marines, consisting of 6 infantry companies of Colonial Marines and a staff company of Royal Marines bought from Canada.
Wow.
It performed garrison duty at the Royal Navy dockyard at Ireland Island. Bermuda was disbanded in Trinidad on August 20, 1816. Near what is now known as Princestown, the former Colonial Marines formed a free farming community known as the Merkins, sometimes spelled Americans. Okay, it's the same spelling. Under the supervision of their former non-commissioned officers, the men formed a 16-acre, 6.45 households. These settlements were successful, and in 1847 their ownership of the land was formally recognized. The community of descendants retained its identity and commemorates its roots in an annual celebration. The detachment in Florida, which had grown about 400 men, was paid off and disbanded when the British post was evacuated at the end of the war. A small number of men went to Bermuda with the British as part of a refuge group, rejoining the main body of the Colonial Marines. Others from Florida units remained in settlements around the wooden stockade, which had become a symbol of slave insurrection. Andrew Jackson, he was the president, opposed the presence of a group of armed fugitive slaves, although they were sparsely populated. That reminds me of this comedy. Is the worst thing to be afraid of is a black man
with a gun.
Jesus, do you think it started from back then? Although they were in sparsely populated areas of Spanish Florida, this led to the Battle of Negro Fort in July 1816. And the beginning of the First Seminole War. For their involvement in the conflict, 2 former auxiliary officers of the Corps were executed in 1818 in what became known as the Arbuthnot. Oh, these British words. Anyway, Ambrister incident. It is believed that the former Colonial Marines refugees were among the groups that escaped to the Bahamas in 1822 and founded on the west coast of the islands of Andros, a community that retains its identity to the present day.
Amen.
Now that's our story about the corpse of the Colonial Marines.
Amen.
About Alexander Cochran, about the Texas
Beaumont football
team.
Well, might I add, this is something that to give you something to think about. How could you ask black players to be expected to stand for a song where the third stanza is rarely sung, where it says, "No refuge could save the hireling or the slave from the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave, which celebrates the murder of African Americans"? How can you stand? How can you stand for that? How can you celebrate that? How can you understand what that song is really saying?
Yeah. I mean, a lot
and
of people
celebrate it.
don't hear that part of the song at all. They just sing that first part and that's it.
That's why your history is so
Important to know. And also to let you know that it's all was a part because of these people, the corpse of the Colonial Marines.
That's right.
And any slaves that would help the British fight against them in the war, in Civil War.
Who had the audacity to fight for their freedom. That's what it said.
The Civil War, when they would join the Yankees, as they were calling them. I mean, and all they were doing was they wanted to be free. And that's all we want today. Free and equality. That's it. Let us have a chance.
Amen.
Let our children have a chance.
Amen.
Without all this stuff going on and seeing and scaring them and everything.
Amen.
It's just our time now. So.
And we're talking about the 1800s, and this is 2016.
Almost 2017. I mean, come on, it's our time. Just let everybody live in peace. This country was born, so it was said, but it was mostly for them. But y'all opened the door with the Statue of Liberty, and when you brought slaves here, when you opened that door,
you gave us the history on the Statue of Liberty. Yeah. So that's a whole nother story.
But it still opened the door for immigrants to come in this country. Now you want to close the doors, you want to build a wall and all that kind of stuff. It's supposed to be the land of the free. Who is the free here? Who is the free? Answer that question for me. Who free here? And I'm not saying that I would not move to any other country. Because even with all the ills and everything that's going on in this country, I still love my country. And that's the bottom line of it. So, I'm not going nowhere, and I don't think most black people are going nowhere, even though they coming up with things of telling us to go here and go there.
No, you go on. I'm staying here.
I'm staying right here. This is my country.
Amen.
I was raised in this country. My mama, my daddy, they family, both sides. This is our country.
Absolutely.
So it's my country too.
And we're also mixed up with the races. All of us are.
All of us. Not just blacks, but the whites too.
Yes.
So much stuff happened during slavery. Wow.
So why can't we get along?
Anyway, let's end this.
Amen.
Satora's Black History Corner internet program comes to you via satellite at allpointstv.com. You can watch our program every second and fourth Monday of the month, unless the day falls on a holiday, at 3:30 p.m. Also, be sure to watch What's Going On with political pundit Dr. George Moss. George has a Facebook page, and it's something, y'all. You ought to take it off sometime.
Oh, yeah.
You can watch his program every Monday at 2 p.m. To receive our theme song, which would be good for you right now because Kwanzaa coming up, Black History Month coming up, Martin Luther King. Have it right now. Listen to it. Really listen to it. And buy it. Call this number, 810-962-3258. TP Productions at 810-962-3258. If it was me and the blackness, I love being black, this would be one of these CDs that I would buy and play it at my functions, like when the people coming in, the interlude or whatever, and have this playing because it says be proud to be black. Okay, also, we have our program is up now on the internet, God's Cup of Blessing Youth Ministry, and it's being shown at allpointstv.com and YouTube. And it started
about 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. So you can just go to allpointstv.com, John.
I also go to the YouTube channel All Points TV, and it's there. Okay.
It's right there.
All right.
And it will continue. You can watch it anytime.
Oh yeah. You can watch it anytime, 24/7. So.
Okay.
All right.
And it's hosted by me, Shepherdess Catherine Hunter Williams, directed by John Wilson. And allpointstv.com programs will be shown on Comcast Channel 17 every Tuesday from 8:30 to 9:30. Okay. And as always, Miss B and I say Asante Sana, which means in Swahili, thank you very much. She kissed it too early. To those who have watched our program today, but that's a wonderful thing. And we definitely hope that you have been filled with high spirits in knowing that we have a great story and that you are encouraged to learn more about our story. Because, wow, it's some little niggets and nuggets that's in there that we don't ever hear about. Thank you. Until next time, as always, we like to say, know that Black Americans are strong and resilient people. Are a strong and resilient people, and that no one can keep us down. And to speak Romans 8:31, be proud to be black and always keep on keeping on with us. Hotep, which means
peace. Amen.
Then I said she kissed it too fast.